That's gonna be so good in the audio. All right. Sparks and Ryan are now, for the audio listeners, are now wearing sunglasses.
And now Ryan is putting his prescription glasses under his sunglasses so he can.
Well, because I can't see without them. Sorry.
I mean, I could put. There's no UV light around, so I can't. Because I wear transitional, so I can't have sunglasses right now. It's dark.
So we are going to be talking about The Matrix Reloaded and The Matrix Revolutions. Who wants to kick the ball rolling?
Well, let's do what we did last time. I took my wrong glasses off because
we kind of slightly talked about Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions last time, but yeah, let's go for it.
No, a little bit, but like, I remember when I saw these movies in theaters when I was young, and I did not like Reloaded, and I actively did not like Revolutions, except for the cool mech fight. That mech fight stayed with me my entire life, even to this day.
Me too.
And then rewatching them many years later, I think both these movies rule. I think Revolutions is awesome, so cool, the best Dragon Ball Z movie we will never get. And it's just really cool to be like, wow, like it's cool to see who I was then and who I am now, and like what I value in cinema and like what I missed then. And I'm like, it's like I think a lot of great genre movies. Like 20 years is the barrier of like, oh, like that's when it gets revisited and people love it. Like things like Blade Runner and The Thing, like those movies, people did not like those movies when they came out. And now those are classics. And I'm like, these movies are classic. They are some of, if not the best action movies ever made. Like truly. I love them.
I really loved these movies. The moment I came out of the theater, I was like, hell yes. And everyone was like, hell no. And then eventually I just convinced myself to be like, well, I guess I was wrong. And I just never rewatched them. I, for a long time, before I like purged my life of the Matrix, considered Revolutions my favorite of the trilogy. And then I was told that, like, you know, they aren't good. They're bad, actually. And I was like, oh, all right, whatever. Matrix is a great movie. Now Reloaded is my favorite in the trilogy. I love these movies. I thought they were excellent. I'm so happy I revisited them. Hell yeah, Matrix, guys.
So I was kind of indifferent. Now, bear in mind, when I finally did see The Matrix, like we were all super young, but when I got out of Reloaded and Revolutions, I thought these were some kick-ass action movies that were just completely bonkers and out of this world. And Reloaded was the one Matrix movie that I actually I've seen multiple times because we had the DVD for the first one and Reloaded, but I was constantly watching Reloaded on DVD. I was constantly watching it on Stars when it was available. I loved Reloaded so much. And to this day, I still think Reloaded is really kick-ass. A lot of my favorite lines came from Reloaded, like when Link goes, he's doing his Superman thing, and Neo flies up for the first time. Just these movies are fun. Or yeah,
because we see it in the Matrix.
Yeah, you're right. Second time, excuse me. These movies are fun. They're great, and I'm actually, the way I watched them this time, I watched them back to back, and I'm really glad I did. I was like, man, these movies are great. I don't know why people started. I don't even know why people started hating on them. I don't know if I ever did or didn't. I probably did just to try to be one of the cool kids. But now I was like, nah, Reloaded and Revolutions are all rad. They're kick-ass. They're so much fun.
Like Kill Bill, like these movies were made to be like one movie. It's like they're one movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sparks?
I saw neither of these in theaters.
Hell yeah.
I saw Reloaded at some point that I couldn't even recall or tell you about. I saw Revolutions because a friend told me to.
And what a sheep.
Yeah. And I thought they were fine.
Yeah.
Some things from Reload stayed with me. I didn't think they were overly offensive. I did not like the ending of Revolutions. And not because of like I didn't like what the ending meant or anything. It never sat okay with me that Neo and Trinity both died at the end. Emotionally, like that always bothered me, even if I didn't necessarily understand why at the time. Mm-hmm. Probably one of the specific reasons why next week I'll talk about how much I love Resurrections. But that never worked for me. I didn't have a problem with like the ending of like what it meant, why Neo did what he did, that kind of thing. But I didn't like that that's where they were left. We'll kind of get into it, and certainly like still some of the things that we talked about last week are like, where like I didn't catch everything. Like I definitely like the first time. I think this is true of everybody. I don't know anybody that said they watched Reloaded and like the architect scene didn't like half of it go over their head.
Oh, 100%.
Like,
yeah. on Twitter, I was like, I very much remember like not knowing anything about code or programming, and like I was like 11, going, oh, what's going on?
Yeah. It's so ridiculously overwritten.
All I saw when I was watching that movie was a dude in a chair, an old white dude in a chair, speaking nonsense. To me, he sounded like, oh, this is what my college professor's gonna look like when I grow up. And I wasn't wrong in some aspects, but he was just so monotone and so like, well, actually, blah, 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 this accent. And then I was
vis-a-vis ergo.
Yeah, using all these words. Like, I watched that part with subtitles on, and I'm so glad I did, because I'm like, holy crap, none of this would have caught.
He is a professor of computer engineering giving a lecture on philosophy 101. Yeah. And like it's hard to totally engage with that the first time.
The actor does a great job. I really like that. The actor's a good actor, but damn,
the concept, because of the way it's delivered, is too dense.
It's like, because I think it's Whiplash is what a lot of people felt watching Reloaded after The Matrix, because they're not the same type of movie. No. They are the action movies that they were, yes, but they are dealing with, in a way, they are also doing like the prequel stuff of, you know, like crazy world building. Everyone's in cloth. Like, it very much is like they're doing the prequel and the sequel stuff at the same time. So I think it was just a lot for people to handle or to take in.
I think every time that people have seen The Matrix, so like there's The Matrix, and it's a really, really attractive onion, and everybody loves that onion. And then you go to Reloaded, and they've peeled a layer of that onion away, and they're like, "Do you still love this onion?"
And then it's
Revolutions, and it's like, "Do you still love this onion?" Yeah. And then it's like you get to the core with Resurrections. It's like, "Do you still love this onion?"
The pit. This is the pit.
Yes. The answer is yes.
And I think that's part of it. I will say, like, my stance, like, rewatched Reload and Revolutions a little while ago. Rewatched them again this week. I really like both of them a lot. I think that if I'm taking a big step away, if I'm looking at them as films, just individual films, I think Reloaded and Revolutions are both pretty darn flawed, not very good movies individually. I do think they are very clearly one whole film. And I think that maybe part of the problem was, like, I wouldn't really technically change much because I want all the content that's in those movies. But like, the answer is to either release a 4-hour film, or to really condense down some of your ideas and at least make a coherent 3-act structure for both, because there is no 3-act structure for both.
There is a specific point that I'm sure we'll bring up, that I know they bring up on Waypoint about Smith. Yeah. I don't agree with it, but I do think that he is one of the big problems of it.
I think I know which one you're referring to. We'll definitely get to it. And I think there are some interesting things to talk about. I think that my biggest, like, what is the flaw of Reloaded and Revolutions? I do think, like, the pacing of how Smith is interspersed between the two films and when he comes up is not great. It's a little flawed. It doesn't quite work, especially if you are taking them as individual cinematic experiences. It really doesn't work. But my big thing is that they don't have 3-act structures. Neither of them do. They are each other's whole 3-act structure. And so watching them as individual pieces, and certainly this makes sense of an audience that would come out of Reloaded and feel unfulfilled. That makes sense. There's nothing to really feel fulfilled by the end of Reloaded. You kind of can't. And I think it is fair to make a lot of comparisons right now to these films being made back to back and around the same time as when we were getting Dead Man's Chest and At World's End from Pirates of the Caribbean being developed at the same time. Lord of the Rings, but I think that's a little different because it is coming from the book trilogy, even though they film back to back. Like, there's a through line of, you have, because the books have it, a built-in narrative of satisfaction by the time you get to the end of the project. Pirates is 2 and 3 need each other to tell the whole story of what's going on with Davy Jones and Jack Sparrow and Will and Elizabeth. However, when I get to the end of Dead Man's Chest, I have had a satisfying 3-act structure story. And when I have At World's End, I have a satisfying beginning all the way to the end 3-act structure story. I don't have that with Reloaded and Revolutions. I need the whole plate.
Rewatching, I was rewatching Revolutions today. And it is funny because, like, the last hour of that movie is just a giant action scene. It's a 30-minute Zion action scene that transitions to a 30-minute Neo action scene. So the entire 2/3 of that movie is nothing but action. Whereas, like, that is
the thing is, like,
all set up for the past movie.
If you are coming to Revolutions pretty far away from the last time you watched Reloaded, it's very hard to care about a lot of those side characters in Zion because they are pretty far from your mind and you are not very properly reintroduced to them.
There's a reason they put it out 6 months after the other one.
It's very hard to I think it's very hard to take these two as separate pieces, which is why I'm glad we're talking about them as one whole.
There is a beautiful 3.5 hour version of this movie.
I agree. I think, I think so as well.
Oh, yeah.
The architect scene is my favorite scene in the whole franchise.
Interesting.
I really, really like that scene. I think it's ridiculously overwritten. But the core of what it's talking about, of like, you know, the history of like the ones, and then the reason why Neo is different than the others is because he's got Trinity, and so like he actually has the choice of which door, whereas the other previous ones didn't.
Right, so, because in the previous versions, the one is always the machines have always crafted the whole program to accommodate the anomaly by making it so the anomaly would inevitably always choose humanity over themselves. And that was easy. But once the anomaly falls in love and has had a different experience, which is what happens this time around, then that choice is no longer certain and easy. In fact, the architect even knows, like, we're blown, like you were screwed. You screwed it up. I can see human emotion within you. Like we're done. So I
and
really
you come to realize at the end of Revolutions that it was the Oracle's plan all along.
Exactly. Which is something we hinted at the end of our conversation last week, which is that what did the Oracle do to make things different? The Oracle told Trinity, you will fall in love with the one, which had never been done before.
Yeah.
I love the like the world building in that scene is really fun too, because we learned that, again, like this isn't the first Matrix, this is like the 6th Matrix or 7th Matrix or whatever. And so that means that the history that we are living in, it is so much older than it actually is.
Yeah. So that's what's
so fascinating. We are not a couple hundreds of years in the future. We're potentially thousands of years in the future.
See, that's what's so interesting to me about it, because like each cycle of the one lasts 100 years. That's what the architect says. So like if each cycle is 100 years, there's been 6 of him prior. So, but the anomaly of the one,
5 of him prior. Sorry, 5 of him. Prior. He is the 6th.
The anomaly of the one, the anomaly of the code of the one. It's implied, and this is just how I read it, and so it might not be how you guys read it. It's implied that I felt that the anomaly came about with this iteration of the Matrix. So like the 90s height of humanity version of the Matrix, the one that the architect like carefully sculpted to be as real as possible to what had happened prior.
Right.
And so like the ones didn't necessarily exist in the other versions of the Matrix, which means that even longer time has happened than anyone has ever imagined.
Yeah, because like I remember in the first Matrix, like there's like a plaque that or no, it's in Revolutions, I think, but there's like a plaque that says like the year 2204, something about the ship, and like, you're telling me this is like 200 years in the future? Yeah. And then when we get the scene with the architect, like, oh no, clear, this is so much further than we could
be in Dune territory
for real. Yeah, that is super fascinating. And the thing about that, I know a lot of people got rubbed the wrong way, is like, we have the Matrix, and it's like we have the outside world and the inside world, right? But like it focused on being the cool Matrix of the inside world. We are now Zion is our main place now, and we are dealing with real people stuff. And like, I think just a lot of people didn't want that in their Matrix sequels. In a way, like their Matrix Resurrections, they wanted a big action movie, and that's not what they got. But now that we're here, and I'm like, no, man, like humans surviving.
They wanted the blue pill.
They wanted the blue pill, yeah. Like human surviving was the whole point of the first one too. We just focus on the cool action part.
The second film has some great action sequences though.
Oh no, it has the best in the franchise, which is crazy. Just I think the world building really threw people off. Like people don't want to go hang out with raves, and I get it. I think raves are pretty cool.
I think that whole sequence is sexy as hell.
Yes, it is. Definitely like. This is a very horny franchise. And like,
Reloaded is the horniest.
Oh my god! Like people are banging on that race floor in the dirt.
I can't tell you how many times I was watching this with Fanny, and like the second when Neo and Trinity go into the elevator, and they start making it. I was like, the horniness is. If I was that meme of the horn dog, I would have run out of baseball bats to
the whole section. The whole section when they're in the elevator, when they're coming off the Nebuchadnezzar. Is like 5 to 10 minutes of Neo and Trinity looking for a place to bang.
Oh yeah,
That is what that scene is about.
They've been trapped on a small ship.
The second she shows up at the party, he's like, everyone's here. She's like, follow me. It's like, there they go.
So that's what I'm talking about. Like when I miss like horny franchises, like we talked about Pirates of the Caribbean. Like I want my franchises to go back to the Addams Family method of like when Morticia and Gomez aren't on screen, they're banging. We have to have that chemistry.
Look, like I agree. Like I want more of like the Neo and Trinity passion thing. I don't need every movie to show me the code of a woman having an orgasm from cake.
That's fair. That's fair.
Too horny. Now, that being said, I'm very glad this movie does it. I just don't want another movie to do it.
Yes. That was wild.
I cannot tell you how many times I've seen The Matrix Reloaded as a kid, and I never understood what the heck was going on until, of course, I watch it as a 31-year-old adult. I go, oh.
I was watching that.
I understand it now.
I was watching that sequence. I was like, oh, they really went for this.
Yeah, they did.
They did not back down. They were like, we're going in.
Literally.
Yeah, man. The Merovingian, what a concept, what a dude. Rogue programs need a place to go, and he's your man. He's just gonna hang out with his ghosts and werewolves and vampires and shit, I guess.
The remnants of the Transylvania Nightmare Matrix.
The characters that don't get enough cool things to do.
It's just funny because like
as cool as you want them to.
Like you get told that like, oh, there's vampires and there's ghosts and stuff. And like we see ghosts, we see what they look like, but like the vampires are just like dudes with fangs.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there's like Dracula in the background. Isn't that funny? I'm like,
yeah, and then of course, like when Persephone takes the gun out of her handbag, she's like, "Do you know why I keep silver bullets in a gun?" And then she shoots the dude dead. I was like, "Was that guy supposed to be a werewolf or something?"
Yeah. Oh, I forgot. So okay, so this was really interesting to me. So I was watching this movie, and like, what's her name? Persephone, right?
Persephone, yeah.
Yeah. Very, very nice alliteration. No, illusion. Whew. I hope that's the right word. Whatever. The scene where Neo kisses Persephone passionately, that whole scene, I had remembered the Enter the Matrix version of that scene being in Reloaded, which is Niobe kissing Persephone.
Oh my.
Or Ghost, depending who you're playing.
Depending on who you're playing, correct. And so like I remember that scene being in this movie, and I was like, oh, was that an Enter the Matrix?
Yep.
Funny enough, I don't remember that and being in the game, but I do remember going to the chateau in the mountains and just that was one of my favorite levels in the game.
Although, do you go to the chateau in the mountains and Enter the Matrix? I thought that was just Path of Neo.
I want to say maybe. I think you do. I could be, once again, it's been over 20 years since I played that game. I can't remember. I might be misremembering, but I do remember fighting and shooting my way through the grand hall with all the weapons on the walls and me wanting to take a sword off it and start hacking and slashing.
Sounds like
I love, I always talk about my favorite thing is like, what does it mean to be human or robots, people? And Persephone has like a grasp of like what love is, but she's never experienced it. So she's like, listen, I'll help you guys if you kiss me with more passion than I've ever felt in my life.
Well, she has experienced it because she used to have it. With
sorry. Yeah. She used to have it,
but it's over.
It's over.
It's been dead for a long time.
And she's like, I could see that you guys love each other. Like, please kiss me and I'll help you. If not, then like, screw you guys. And he gives her like a weak one, and she's like, bullshit. And Trinity's like, I gotta give her some tongue, whatever. That's such a good scene.
No, I'm glad because I watched these on HBO Max. And since the visual quality is a lot better than it was on the DVD, I could actually see Carrie-Anne Moss's eyes or Trinity's eyes. And even though she's wearing sunglasses, the lighting, I don't know if you could see on the original DVD release. I don't remember it, but the lighting and the way I can see it, you can see her eyes just very faintly. She's pissed. She's like, I want to. Well, yeah, obviously, but still, it's like, I just love it. Because normally you just see like, her like grimace, but with the eyes, it's like, oh, she wants to murder this lady.
You gotta do what you gotta do, though.
Mm-hmm.
Sparks, you're gonna say something?
No, I was just agreeing with Ben.
So I do remember, and it doesn't super bother me, but there is something to be said of at the end of the Matrix, Neo is God, right? Superman's up. The beginning of this movie, the first fight scene he has is like, oh, upgrades. So it's like so his Superman stuff doesn't really matter anymore.
Well, I mean, it does because he still kicks the
he does
out of him.
No, but it's not like it doesn't feel like there's any like I'm at a crossroads because like no, I guess I'm not. I don't know.
So I kind of know the thing you're going with, and like how does Neo have stakes in the fights that he gets into?
Yes.
And I think that Reloaded actually does a pretty good job of giving Neo stakes, which the stakes are really that he gets delayed away from where Morpheus and Niobe are, which is the thing is like they're the stakes, and can he get to them?
He's Goku.
Essentially, and like you kind of have to use him that way.
I guess that's my thing. It's like he is kind of just like the guy who saves the day, which I guess like that's not a bad thing though.
Right, and I think they do it pretty smartly to give him the counterpoints. I do think that, and I'm going to reference it just in this one section because I don't want to pull too much from it. But Patrick Willems made his video where he's like, "How would I redo Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions to make it like flow better?" And I think he brings up a really good point of like, if you have these exiles, these monsters, ghosts, whatever, that are implied to be part of Merovingian's group, then when Neo fights them, have their older code be there, and so it's not as easy to fight them. Like he can't manipulate them the same. And I think like even better, like take that. This isn't part Patrick Willems said, but like have it be something he has to figure out. He has to recognize that it's older code. He has to refigure out how to read that and how to reinterpret it. Make it so that he's getting even stronger in how he understands how code works.
Yeah.
But make that a part of what Neo's doing when he engages with them. He can wipe agents out.
Yeah.
He can't totally handle Smith when Smith gets too many numbers, and that's his disadvantage with Smith.
Yeah.
But as far as like the exiles, when he has that fight with them, the problem is that he has to understand old code.
Yeah.
And that's a way to kind of nerf him down.
That's a good point, because like if you think about it, the opening fight scene with the agents is really just there to put the agents off of the board. The agents don't really come back in the movie until the highway chase, which there are stakes because it's Morpheus and Trinity.
Yeah,
exactly.
Oh yeah.
But I think like they even kind of try to hint at like that being a possibility, but like I think they could have done more with it in the Chateau fight, because you do get the part where he gets sliced on the hand and he's cut, and it's like, see, he's still beatable.
True. Yeah.
But like I think you could have gone far enough to say like, oh, Neo really needs to think about this because he's been playing without any kind of restrictions up to this point ever since he beat Smith.
They're playing outside of the box that he's used to.
But then there's
it's like Superman fighting against magic or something.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. It's not like a chapter, it's just something I thought of.
You brought up Smith. I thought that I really like the idea that like even like the upgraded agents are there, but he can still handle the agents. But like Smith, especially when the overwhelming numbers happen, like it's a struggle for him, showing that Smith has evolved to a point far above an agent, and without just even seeing all the many of him.
The Burly Brawl.
Burly Brawl is awesome.
It is. It's not super necessary to the movie.
No.
Which one's the Burly Brawl?
That's the one with all the
Smiths.
Oh yeah.
After he meets with the Oracle.
I think the Burly Brawl should end pretty much like right before the point where Neo gets pushed back and gets the pull. Because after that point, they become almost entirely CGI most of the time.
Yeah.
Before that, it's still mostly practical stuff that you're seeing, with every once in a while some CGI.
Yeah.
And I think all of it, the fight should have ended there. That's the point when he should have been overwhelmed and then flew away. And I don't think any of the action after that point is very good, even though that means we lose the good bowling pin second.
It is cool. Yeah.
Yes.
Very anime. Yeah. It is a point where unfortunately it doesn't age very well, especially when it's just like 100 rubber looking dudes, and like it doesn't look awful, but it's like we just watched beautiful martial arts and now we're just watching like rubber.
I think the problem with it is that like I think it's all the timing. I think the problem is not that the Burly Brawl doesn't work necessarily for what the story is doing. I think it's just happening at the wrong time.
Yeah.
I think that like this is another part where I kind of agree with Patrick Willems, so not necessarily about where you would place it, but like I would have changed how Smith is introduced. I would have had Smith deliver the thing at the beginning and have it be a mystery for people, and I would have changed the moment when you know that he's coming. My interpretation, I think it would have been better to find a way to work the script around to make it so that when they do the backdoor thing, and that's when they run into Smith
for the first time. Yeah,
exactly. But when he pulls Neo through the doors, then there's suddenly more. There are more and more and more Smiths, and that's the first time
what has he been doing this whole time?
That's the first time you find out that there are more Smiths.
Yeah.
And rather have the Merovingian as your main antagonist throughout the movie up to that point. I think that Smith is just like, especially the Burly Brawl, is just paced poorly because you kind of have to put it out of sight, out of mind. I also think that in tandem with that, when Bane gets taken over by Smith, should also be connected to that. Bane the person who is Bane should have been a member of the crew that was trying to help Neo get into the building.
Yeah.
And he's one of the dudes who's trying to escape. So you already are connected to that character. So you register him being taken over by Smith. You register what it means when he gets pulled through the phone, because when that happens in the movie as it is, it's very disjointed. And once Smith goes through the phone, you cut to reality to something else. Like,
and we don't see it for a while.
It's very easy, especially for first-time audience members, to not register that meant Smith was in the real world and who that was. So when you cut back to Bane later, a lot of people didn't realize who that was, and that did make the cliffhanger ending make people go, wait, what?
Yeah.
Why does that matter?
You kind of, in the Burly Brawl, there's a bit where an agent takes over a girl with the groceries, and then Smith comes over and assimilates the agent.
Right.
And I thought that was awesome.
Me
too.
I love that part. It's so good.
Is a gift.
Right.
Yeah.
I wouldn't really want to change what Smith's doing in the movie at all. I really like all of it. I would just change where it happens and how it's presented as information to Neo, because it's also like, that is one of the things as Neo flies away and then he's like, yeah, I'm just not going to really think about that for a while.
Yeah, I'm just gonna pretend it didn't happen.
Well, it was crazy that I just fought like 1,000 Smiths. Whatever, I'm sure it's fine.
And it's also weird. Like, once he's had that big of a force, it's strange that he doesn't show up again when Neo re-enters the Matrix, because he has so many bodies already when they're encountering Merovingian. Whereas if it came at the backdoor moment, then he's already started to get closer to the end where he can be more powerful, because we're not going to see him need to engage with Neo that much in the Matrix.
Yeah. Like, you're building him up so much, you still have to build him up all the way to the next movie.
Exactly.
I'm like, it's a lot to do. The action in this movie, let's reload it first. It's like, I've rewatched the highway chase scene like 5 times.
So
good. They built an actual highway. They built a 1.5 mile highway in the middle of the desert to do this, and it shows. They destroyed like 300 GM cars. They just, I make the joke but like, they just don't make movies like this anymore, because it's just so. There's a scene specifically where Trinity is driving against traffic. She's on the left side of the lane, and then she merges in, and it's real, and there's really weaving between cars, and I got so nervous, and I'm like, holy shit, that's a real person on a car.
Yeah, even some of the cars, like some of the cars are CG because the camera goes through them, but like not all of them.
Oh yeah, you can definitely tell, like, especially because like on my big ass TV here, like I can tell when like the 2003 when it's CG, but like, man, there are so many just cars being exploded, dropped, people like stomping on them, but it's like really just like a hydraulic pump on a car. Like, the behind the scenes of this scene specifically are insane, truly insane.
The freeway scene is so cool. Watching this one again, I did the link. Whew! When he. When he gets Morpheus and the key maker, right?
Yeah.
And when he saves them from the awesome slow motion of the truck like collapsing in and exploding outward, and it's such a cool scene. That like I was like, oh my god, he did it.
Yeah, man. Like, again, like the practicality of Morpheus stabbing the side of the truck to stand on it to whip the key maker up. And then he's got to fight an agent up there.
Morpheus going up against an agent is so cool.
Yeah, and then it's Chekhov's sword, where like Morpheus looks to the side, and then when you cut back to it, he's got the sword. I'm like, man, this is cinema, baby. This is so good. And the fight on top of there, it's so well choreographed, and like he does like the crane kick that like land on the thing. I'm like, man, I love martial arts.
Yeah,
you get super nervous when Morpheus is fighting on top of the truck because he's like inching closer. He's like almost falling off the trailer, and he's fighting the agent. He's trying to make sure the keymaker is safe. And it's just, even though I know how this movie ends, I'm still on the edge of my seat going, come on, kick his ass, kick his ass.
It was the Weekly Planet that they made this observation and I didn't notice it, but Morpheus going up against the agent kind of signifies that he because he's seen Neo do it. He's like, oh hell, we can all take him. And so like he's more confident going up against an agent, and that confidence is giving him not the upper hand, but like a fighting chance.
He believes.
Like he believes. Yeah, it's good.
I love the part where Morpheus is fighting the twins' car, and he slices the tire with the sword, turns around, and blows up the gas tank.
By the way, the ghost in the sedan when he's like, and then the agent like over the thing. That's a bad time. That's just a very bad time with a ghost and an agent right here.
obviously like the effects itself is a little dated, but like just like the constant teleportation of the ghost mid fight, really cool. Like the only time you ever see that is like in X-Men 2 or in Jumper. You don't really get cool teleportation fights.
No.
Yeah, and it's done so well and so smooth in this early. Like that's a difficult effect.
Yeah,
we are getting aggravated. Yes,
I also
we
love
are.
The introduction of the concept of like stay away from the freeway, because it's always going to be bad because agents can get there so easily.
Oh yeah,
and overwhelm you so quickly. But that's where they had to go. I thought that was such a good like, oh man, tense.
It's always
additional scene.
They do it.
You always told me. You always told me it was suicide. Let us hope I was wrong.
Yeah. They always in all three movies like have transitions of like people turning into agents, but it's always fun to have like two dudes in a car, then a car drives by them, and then they're two agents.
Yeah.
It's super simple, but it's always effective.
Because he's like, oh shit.
Yeah. Neo having to come save the day, really, really impressive effect. Just that is such a long in the scene. The like soundtrack is ripping.
Soundtrack is really. There's a lot of good techno tracks in this in these two movies. I will not lie.
The scene where Trinity is shot and jumps and falls out the window, and Neo, the scene when he leaves the architect room. Oh, did we lose you?
There we go. No, they're there. There they are.
Oh, okay. The scene where the Neo leaves the architect room and like the explosion behind him, and then the only sense that you get of his speed, because it's doing the slow motion, is like the trail behind him. Like it's an effect that he'll use. It's an effect that the Wachowskis will use in Speed Racer too. But like having him static with the screen, never moving, but like the stuff behind him and like flying by is such a cool visual, and like got me really like nervous. I've seen this movie before, but I was like, oh my god, he might not make it.
Yeah.
Especially when he catches Trinity before she falls on the car, and then the agent falls, but then there's just giant like hurricane force winds or even not even hurricane, like tornado force winds of cars and broken glass and whatever debris Neo caught up in his path just follows, and just complete devastation of him to get Trinity out of there. It's like, yeah, screw all those guys, I guess.
That's probably my favorite shot in all of the Matrix films, is Neo flying with the tornado of cars and debris and everything behind him, with the neon lights starting to streak, and he's just like going for it as hard as possible. Yeah,
so good.
I also really, really love that shot, and I'm like, man, like the Wachowskis, like, just they have an eye for how like superhero shit could look, honestly, because like no Superman movie has as good a shot as when Neo bursts through the explosion out of the architect's room, and then he's flying through the fire and he like pushes even harder with his fist forward. It's like really great shot. And just we're not getting that.
I was gonna say, this is the. Go ahead.
No, I'm done. No,
I'm sorry. This is the first time and the only time that I really see like a superhero fly like inches off the ground. It's such an interesting visual that I just kind of like. Okay. Did I just derail everything?
No, I was just trying to picture what you were talking about. That's all.
No, it's when he's coming out of the architect. It's when he's coming out of the architect room. He's not far off the ground.
He's flying.
No. I know what you're saying. I'm trying to picture the shot in my brain and think about it. That's all.
Well, that was the only thing I was hoping someone else would pick up the pieces and go somewhere.
I just love it's still impressive how many Smiths can be on screen, and a lot of it isn't a digital effect. It's a lot of them it's like a lot of like masks, like Hugo Weaving masks. But like the architect specifically, like when they leave that room and there's like, oh hey, what's up? Smith's here. And then there's a whole bunch more Smiths, and like, oh shit, the keymaker's trying to find a certain door. Really claustrophobic good fight scene. With just a bunch of Hugos.
Yeah, I love the introduction of the concept of the back doors. Seraph, the login.
I love
screen.
Seraph.
The login
so good.
screen. Seraph.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I love that. That's ridiculous. Basically, Seraph. Hi, Seraph. I need to enter my password.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
You didn't enter with case sensitive.
Yeah. I really like Link. I think he's more fun than Tank. I'm happy that we got him.
Yeah.
Even for the circumstances of why we got him. I'm happy to have him.
He just walks into his house about to scream, "Where's my P word?" in front of his kids, man. He's got a one-track mind.
He didn't know the kids were in there.
No, I know. It's just
there's nieces.
No, it's just funny.
His niece and nephew. But yeah,
he's the type of guy who walks into his house saying, "I'm horny."
Yeah.
God.
Man, everybody's doing it.
Yeah.
I love the rave scene.
Yeah,
me too.
I didn't at first, but then I became a rave kid, and I'm like, no, I get it. I really like the scene between the old I don't know his name, but the old man on the council with Neo, and he goes to talk to him about machines.
Yes, that's like one of my favorite scenes.
Because that is kind of like the beginning of what Resurrections is.
Yes, because not only that, it is the entire point of why Neo does what he does at the end of Revolutions is that conversation.
So he's talking to this old man. They're in the depths of Zion, and he's like, Neo, all these machines, we rely on all these machines. At the same time, we are like on the crisis of being murdered by all these machines. And like, what's the line? What is the point of this war? Where are we going? What do you see? Neo's like, bro, I don't know. I just woke up. But it's the first time like that they bring up the question of like, is this war like worth it? Is it like is this what we're supposed to be doing? And it's a question we really don't get the answers to until Resurrections, excuse me. It's just like it's a nice little scene that like outside of this movie, I don't think any people talk about like the alternative to the war that they're doing. He's the only guy who's like, maybe there's a different way, and it's cool.
He's the one who's saying like, you know, what we're comfortable with these machines because we can destroy them, which means we have control, which is the same as the Matrix.
Yeah.
But like, if we destroy the machines, then like, what happens to our air? What happens to our water? What happens to how we live? And it's like the only real future seems like if we're synergized together.
Yeah.
My one thing is that I do kind of wish this scene took place between Neo and Morpheus. And I wish it was Neo asking Morpheus what he thought about these things. Like these were things Neo was already thinking
That's a good
about.
point, yeah.
Mostly because I don't like that Morpheus kind of gets more and more gradually, especially into Revolution, sidelined.
Yeah.
And I kind of wish that this was a moment of them and Zion together and Neo saying like, this is what I'm thinking about. And Morpheus being the person that he is, believes that the only way to end the war isn't necessarily peace. It's destroying the machines. But to have Neo kind of posit that and Morpheus have to maybe think about it, and that he puts full trust in Neo, so he's now like starting to change his mind about what the future actually looks like. And like, while I really love that scene, that council member doesn't mean anything to me. He's only important for that one scene because of that, and then he becomes the mouthpiece of like, I believe in Morpheus, which means I believe in Neo.
Yeah.
But if it was Morpheus, that could be more connected to the audience and mean something and really put Morpheus on a like Morpheus's mindset about what is going to happen is changing.
That's a good point.
And it is honestly another thing that is challenging his faith. Like, what is his faith? And is his faith in Neo or is his faith in the one as a prophecy?
Yeah. Is it
in Neo as the person or not?
And then you got like, and then we introduced you like the kid. If you've seen the Animatrix, he comes from there.
Love the kid. Wish he had a skateboard.
No skateboard, unfortunately. That's cool.
I want him skating out with that ammunition.
I really wanted. Even though I've seen Revolutions 100 times at this point.
I want him hopping on that cart like. Woo!
I was waiting for
it. I like the. There was a scene that Morpheus did that does in this. At the end of the movie before the Sentinel destroys the Nebuchadnezzar, when Morpheus is shaken to the core at the revelation that the one prophecy has been made up, and it's been made up 6 different times.
That it's another form of control.
Yeah,
which is all the more reason why I'm like. That's why I wish he had that conversation with Neo. I wish that it was something where he's like, okay, so I don't have faith in the one, I have faith in Neo. Which is ultimately what Niobe's belief system is.
Yeah,
I really liked. I like the scene where the Nebuchadnezzar is about to be exploded because they got to evacuate, and we see like the bottom of the sewers they've been flying in. I think the whole set is so gorgeous. That whole sequence is really cool, and then just ending with Neo because he realizes he has the code in him. He can stop the Sentinels in the real world too.
Right, he's connected to the source code. Yeah,
that shit's crazy. That guy got force powers in real life now.
Yeah, that was cool. And that was something I didn't understand the first time I watched it, but like watching it this time, I was like, oh, I get it.
Right. Yeah, it's very much like wait, why can he do that now? And it's very easy on a first watch to not get that. And there is an amount where like I don't want the Wachowskis to really change what they did. Like, I love that it's dense and you have to rewatch it to understand it, but it's also like, I get why people bounce off this.
Yeah.
And I definitely remember being in the theater, not liking the ending, the cliffhanger ending with Bane.
Yeah, yeah.
Even though like I like the idea of like Smith becoming human.
Love that idea.
It's really cool idea. Just like I think it's a bad idea to end your movie this way.
And that guy is so good.
Oh yeah.
As Hugo Weaving.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think the first few times I watched it, I was like, when I was a kid, especially, I was like, this guy's just being Hugo. Is this guy actually Hugo Weaving, or is he trying to be Hugo Weaving? And this is nuts. Yeah. Like the way this actor articulates Mr. Anderson, it's just like Hugo Weaving Smith. It's like, really, Neo, you couldn't figure out that was Smith the whole time until the very end.
Well, because like, because it's like it's so ridiculous to think about. Yeah. That this virus could be a person in the real world. To Neo, like Neo does not think it's possible.
Absolutely. I think that like once he said Mr. Anderson, I do think his brain should be turning a little faster than it is.
Yeah.
I'm like,
he doesn't find out. He doesn't find out until the end of Revolutions.
Right, but I'm talking about in Revolutions when he's got Trinity by the knife.
Yeah.
He calls him Mr. Anderson the moment he walks in.
And Neo is still like, what?
Neo's like still like, what?
Yeah.
He takes taking a really long time to get there, and I'm like, bro, only one person ever calls you Mr. Anderson.
Yeah.
The reveal,
especially in Zion. Like,
we haven't talked about Revolutions really at all.
No, because we've been very like Reloaded focused. There's a lot. We're probably going to bounce back and forth too. So like,
but the scene where he can see Smith when he's blind is so good.
Still got the glasses on.
I love how we see the Matrix through Neo's eyes. Like when he in going back to Reloaded, when he walks in and he meets Seraph for the first time, Seraph is just like this glowing entity. And then when he's finally blind and he goes, I can see you. And Smith is just this raging fire person with Hugo Weaving's face in the sunglasses. I think that's
such a good moment.
It is.
Or even the way he sees the Machine City, because he's telling Trinity, he's like, I wish you could see it. It's like it's made of light. And IRL, it's like, this is a scary, dark, damp place. I don't want to be here.
How sad is it that Smith is the last like living figure that he sees?
It's pretty sad.
Like human looking figure that
ties
sees
them.
Before he dies.
It's a really good point.
So I actually want to talk about that for a hot second. One of the things I'm actually very grateful to Resurrections is that it answered a question that I had after when I was a kid and I watched Revolutions for the first time, because I never caught on to the fact that Neo was actually dead. I thought he was just used so much of his own energy to defeat Smith that it just knocked him out cold. I never knew that he died. And then when we see the anomaly, Neil Patrick Harris's character in the next movie, and he says, "Oh no, you were dead. I rebuilt you." I was like, okay, I know.
This time, I get that. I was also, I did feel like it was left a little ambiguous whether or not he was dead or not, and I appreciate that. I always kind of assumed he was dead because the idea is that when he's absorbed by Smith, he's now connected. Smith is now connected to the source, and by deleting the Smith virus from the Matrix, which is what they do at the end, it kills Neo's life force as well.
Well, not just that, but like Neo becomes the vessel of the source,
right?
Which is like, because I thought I had to think about it for a while, because I'm like, why is that the last shot we see of Neo? Because it's Neo on the back of the cart that's being taken away. But before we go away from it, we also see it in the same visual that Neo saw. And where Neo is the brightest light of all. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's because Neo is now completely contained within the source. So that's like the whole thing is Neo's dead because Neo reconnected with the source. And when you reconnect with the source, you die.
Yeah. It's funny that the machines, like when they use that Matrix Resurrection technology to form a face, it's just a big fat baby.
Yes.
Yeah. Big fat baby.
With a very deep voice.
Yes. Yeah.
What do you want?
I'm Rubik.
The line where Trinity says, "Do you know what's changed 6 hours ago?" No, nothing. Mm-hmm. It's such a good moment. Her death sequence with in the sun, and she can see a real sunset is beautiful.
In potentially 1,000 years. Yeah.
I honestly don't remember like I want to come back to what you just said about the sun thing, but like I don't know what I thought of the first time I saw Reloaded when he brings Trinity back to life with like putting his hand in and like moving her heart. But I'm pretty sure like it was something along the lines of like, well, that doesn't make any sense. He's just starting her heart in the Matrix. Like, why would her real body start beating? Like, not thinking the way that you're supposed to about it, and being like, well, that seemed kind of cheap.
Love, baby.
No, I really like it. I think it's really great. I love that he takes the bullet out because, like, it's like your mind is making it real, but it's not real. Like, you could just be alive.
Yeah, you could just be alive.
Nothing physically happened to you, so we can bring you back.
We'll talk about that in a comic coming up, actually.
Yeah, I'm just gonna start your Digiheart squeeze, and it starts. It's like, there you go, you're fine.
I was thinking he massaged it.
I thought he started pumping it. Wow. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Either way,
he pumps it. I do really like that Trinity is the person who, like, the only person alive who sees what the real sky looks like.
Neo can't see it
and calls it beautiful, and like, I think that's a really striking moment, especially how like bright and colorful they make it.
Really and then when we're going back down towards Machine City,
it's so depressing.
You see the scope of it and this how dark and depressing it looks, and I'm like, man,
So crazy. One of the things about the machines. Like the big one giant baby, it looks like a giant sea urchin, and then the one that takes Neo away, it's like a little, it's like a giant crab mantis sort of thing. Those machine designs just I mean, of course, the Sentinel itself scares the ever living daylights out of me because it's a giant squid, but also it even has like the little crab like thing.
We talked about it briefly last week, like with the Animatrix, like robots like were designed to be humans, and then when they hate humans, they turn into monsters. So now they're all like crab-like and
I forgot. Was it you or what other, or maybe a YouTube video or somewhere I heard that like essentially the evolution is crabs?
That's me. Yeah. I mean, it could have been both. You couldn't watch the video too, but yeah, crab is like the evolution, like perfection for some reason.
Yeah. I wanted to bring up something real quickly about Neo being able to use like the power of the Matrix outside with the machines. Watching Resurrections and then watching Revolutions again, because I did both. There's a when they hold hands has been recontextualized thanks to Resurrections, and that's in how he like is able to control all of that ammunition, so they don't it does eventually backfire, but like for a long time it's really cool.
Yeah.
He's using the Matrix Force, and then of course he loses him. Trinity just grabs. He's like, "I got you," and then he regains control again. It's like
Neo and Trinity. Neo and Trinity are one of the great 21st century love stories.
You know, power of love, man, conquers all. Huey losing the news were right.
One of the reasons why they are so good is because they really do. Hold on, let me see if I can find my note I wrote about it.
They actually are banging.
That's true.
You can tell they like each other because they won't stop touching each other.
I liken them. Go ahead.
It's because it's it's Neo and Trinity falling in love with their idealized version of themselves. So while at the same time, like, it is a beautiful love story, it's the trans narrativeness like that comes through with it is this idea of self-love and recognizing like the idealized version of yourself. It's one of the reasons why I really like the way that they shoot the intimacy scene that's happening in conjunction with the rave, because once you start pulling away, you can't tell which one of them is which. And that's clearly like a deliberate choice, because in many ways, like, Neo and Trinity are in love with like, and it's not like a narcissist thing. It's that they are representational of like the things that they want to love in themselves. And I think that's really cool.
I couldn't put it better myself.
Yeah. You want to know what's so one of my favorite scenes from Revolutions, when they go to the other rave, or the other like goth rave, I don't even know what they're called. The second one with the French guy,
Merv's Club.
The what?
Merv's Club.
Club Hell.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, when they go to that one, and then they're trying to make a deal with, I can't pronounce his name. Merovingian, yeah. And then Trinity puts a gun to his head, like, how about this? You give me Neo, or we all die right here, right now. I'm like, go get him, girl.
She also calls him Merv. Yeah, listen,
Merv. My only thing about that one is that I kind of wish it was like a Last Day on Earth party. Like, you've got the Merovingians still like wanting to make a deal for the Eyes of the Oracle. But I wish that there was some hint at the idea that the programs that are there know that Smith is starting to pollute the entire Matrix, and that it's only a matter of time before they all get taken too.
Yeah.
But that's not a part of that narrative at all.
It is oddly like not tied to the narrative of the movie. It's kind of like we're just gonna do our own little thing to get Neo to get to the story.
This is another one of those things where like Reloaded's ending as just Reloaded as a film doesn't really work, and Revolution's beginning as a film doesn't really work either. You're just kind of thrown back into the story, and it takes a little bit to like get everything back in place. I think that the whole limbo thing with him stuck in the train station and learning about Sati and talking with the programs is all really good stuff, but it's real slow going when you're just coming in on that movie.
It is definitely, yeah.
Whereas like if you're just continuing the narrative from Reloaded, I'm like, this is fine.
Yeah, it's like this. It just feels like the next scene.
Yeah,
right. But it does feel like a bit of a drag in the opening, and not only that, like a drag that's not serving the purpose of Revolution as a story, right? It's serving the wider story, but not Revolutions as a story as well.
Speaking of something that doesn't drag, let's talk about mechs. Because there is a 30-minute mech fight in this movie that is like Captain Mifune, that guy, maybe one of like the best yellers in movie history. That dude just gives it his all, no matter what's happening.
I will never forget watching that scene in the theater, and when Mifune he's in his mech, he's like shooting all of them. I actually have both armrests, and I'm going like on my armrests, like trying to like shoot them. Shut up, man. I was a kid.
Yeah, I'm just doing it, huh?
I'm just sitting there going like trying to go like trying to shoot down sentinels with the Mifune and the rest of the core, and it just looks. I was like
incredibly cinematic. When like Zion's gone to shit, right? We'll talk about Niobe with one of the best racing. It's not a race scene, but like her in the holocraft is like one of the coolest things ever. But
I love when they're just like, because they like the Neo and Trinity take Niobe's ship, and Niobe's like, I'll pilot your ship. I don't care. I can do this. Shut up. And the what is it like the machine line or something?
Yes.
And that whole sequence is so cool. I really love the designs of the ships so much, but seeing them in this type of action was really cool and really well crafted. And there's a lot of tense energy, and the music is going really great. I love that scene. I love ridiculous action sequences where it's just like you just cut to people in chairs going. Argh! I love it.
Like again, like the last hour of Revolutions is just nonstop action, whether it's from mechs or inside ships or in the Matrix. But like we'll talk about it now. But like Niobe is so cool in this movie. Like she's cool in that last movie, but like she really gets to shine one in the game.
Well, it's because so much of her stuff for Reloaded is really in Enter the
Matrix. Is in the game.
Like kind of a bummer. Yeah, it's like 40 minutes of footage with her.
Yeah. But like the thing honestly that makes me so excited about rewatching that scene. It's like it's not even how cool the action is. It's seeing all the characters deal with how crazy of a driver Niobe is, because nobody like they know what kind of a driver she is, but like the captain's like, this isn't your ship, treat her with respect. And she's like, yo, she got a fat ass as she's driving through the thing, right?
Yeah.
Morpheus.
There's a line where he says, damn, bitch could drive.
Yeah. Morpheus, who is a guy who is pretty much calm, cool, and collected most of the trilogy. Even when fighting agents, he seems like a cool guy. Niobe is throwing numbers at him left and right. He's like, I'm doing my best, woman. Like you never see him like that in any other parts of the movie. And she's just so cool. And she's just like, she's like 5'3". She's like a 100 pounds like wet, but she's like so tough. And I'm like, this is the coolest driving scene in any movie. And it's not even like a car.
I love how like the captain of the Hammer straight up just like, I don't give, like she's like, he's like, everyone to the gun. She's like, Ghost, you're the best gunner. You're the best gunner we got. Morpheus, and she's like yelling commands, and she does that kick-ass maneuver to get into the mechanical line. And he's like, I didn't even know the ship could do that.
Like a cool 360 dive. Like
that was the coolest thing. Rewatching this, I was like, I don't get this from modern movies, and this should be easier now. What the hell? This is the coolest thing.
We've watched now like 4 or 5 new Star Wars movies, and I can't think of any TIE fighter scene that rivals this.
I'm not here to yuck the yum I think that Niobe's like flying is great. I will say all praise to the use of the Millennium Falcon in Force Awakens when they fly up and they do the flip so that the jammed gun can shoot down at the TIE Fighter.
That was cool.
That is in the same realm vibe.
And
it is. Yeah.
And I will also say the Last Jedi scene on with the Falcon on Crate, when it's in the Crate caves.
Yeah.
That's a cool scene.
Taverns. Yeah, that was
but
cool
it's true. Like very, very good Niobe driving stuff. I think all of that really works. And I think it's a bummer that because I've listened to so many Matrix conversations lately. It's a bummer that for a lot of people like that stuff just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like they don't seem to care about the characters, or they think it's like dumb to just have them there. I will say that I do think it's a bummer, and I don't think there is a narrative way to fix it because it wouldn't make sense. That you have Mifune, who I think is great because of like the role he's playing. But again, this is another instance where I kind of wish that was Morpheus.
Yeah.
Because you kind of want Morpheus to have more to do, and Morpheus is very much on the side, and like having Morpheus be in the last stand of Zion, like that's somebody who's then on that bridge that you have cared about. Like it's a big deal that he's there.
He's not really doing anything, is he?
No, he's assisting Niobe, but like there's no character tension. Like can you imagine like Niobe being the person who's piloting that ship back, and it's like you need that EMP, and Morpheus is the last person like holding the bridge, and so you're like, Morpheus, you gotta do it, man. I like Mifune. I'm totally fine with the character, but again, like this is just something where like Morpheus really just starts being less important in Revolutions and never really gets it back.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I think that the worst offense of that, just because we're on the topic of it, when you get to the very end of the movie, the fact that the person who has the last say is the Oracle and not Morpheus, I think is a big mistake.
Mm-hmm.
This is a thought that a lot of other people have had. I agree with it. I think that Morpheus is the person who should get to say like the "I always believed" kind of sentiment, and that's where you end, rather than it being on the Oracle.
It's interesting that it ends on like the computer programs, not any of like our human protagonists or anything.
Yeah. The reveal, you can still have the reveal of the Oracle and the Architect being like, this was always part of a game that we were playing, like a chess they were doing together, and then after that get the Morpheus, I always believed.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. Is like I think you still keep the Oracle Architect conversation, but the fact that the last sentiment of like I always believed goes to the Oracle, I'm like, no, that's Morpheus. This should be Morpheus. This should be Morpheus and Zion like having a conversation with Niobe, where Niobe's like, did you always think that it would end in peace? And he's like, no, but I always believed
in him.
Yeah, exactly. It should be his thing, because that's the impact you should be ending with. Is like this is all because of Morpheus.
I think like his final, like the stuff with him in the movie, like he's like looking up after Neo saved the day and like with teary eyes, and that's like the last thing we see of like all those characters. Yeah, that is a good point.
Because it's the Oracle's manipulation that makes it so that the one occurs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, the Oracle changed all this plan. She's the one who like set Morpheus on the path. Like, you're going to find the one. Trinity, you're going to fall in love with the one. But it's Morpheus' belief that rallies Trinity. It's Morpheus' belief that pulls Neo out. It's Morpheus' belief that makes Neo want to be who he wants him to be. Like, it's Morpheus who is your character, your human person who's driving that narrative, and it should have ended with Morpheus.
That's a good point,
yeah.
Morpheus could be in the scene with the Oracle and the Architect.
Could be. I mean, yeah, that'd be something. I don't know why he would be, but like you could.
Because the Oracle's like, hey, let's go have tea.
Yeah, I don't think.
Oh, have you met my friend? Have you met my friend the Architect?
I don't think there would be any problem with having like the Oracle Architect scene and then just cutting back for one last like 30-second moment at Zion with Morpheus. Like, I just think, in fact, you are with Morpheus like right before you go to the Oracle and Architect, just switch it.
So Burly Brawl, lots of Smiths, gets a little unwieldy near the end. Then we get to Revolutions, the finale.
I love that
full-blown opera. I love this final fight, despite it because I thought it was going to be, oh my god, it's gonna be 1,000 Smiths fighting in the rain. It's gonna look terrible. It's like it's a personal fight, baby. It's Smith v Neo, and it is a big, ballsy, awesome Dragon Ball Z fight where they're pushing into things and like things break behind them. They're getting pushed into like the rubble and the smashes behind them. Like, I love all that stuff.
Myth that has taken the eyes of the Oracle.
Yes,
which is what the Merovingian always cared about.
He wanted the future. He can see it. He sees it.
Yeah, the fighting and the effects of the rain fight. Like, one of my favorite scenes is when Neo punches Smith, but it's all slow, and you see him punching in the raindrops, the water effects, and that whole fight scene is just so damn good.
there's a
like,
very
even when
good...
Neo's walking down and he sees all the Smiths and it's just pouring rain in a flood street, I'm like, this is just great.
You like what I've done with the place.
There's a very good use of rain in that fight, and I think that the fight overall holds up very well, with the exception of like looking a little too dark in some spots.
Yeah.
But beyond that, like graphics wise, I'm like, this really holds up. The impact of it is very clear and concise.
I cannot tell you guys how many times I have said, "Mr. Anderson, welcome back. We missed you." Like all the time, like for years, I've just been repeating that over and over again. That's the only line from The Matrix I have ever done that to. Isn't that weird?
I would say it's weird because that line's been quoted for years, and it's a fun line to say, and especially in the way Hugo Weaving says it. It's just so much fun. You just like, ooh.
I'm a not like this kind of guy.
I really like. What'd you say?
Not like this. That's mine.
Not like this. From the Matrix.
Yeah, I really like the Smith versus Neo fight at the end. I think it's really well choreographed, and just the whole visual aesthetic of it is great.
And then like the whole speech you gave at the beginning of the episode of like,
yes,
what, you suck so much, Neo. Like, you're gonna lose. Why do you keep doing this? It's because I can.
Right.
Because that's free will, baby. I can do what I want.
Yeah.
And that makes him so mad.
Because Smith thinks he has free will at this point.
Yeah.
And it frustrates him that like, because he has that, he doesn't understand like why he would keep doing it, because logically to him he wouldn't, but that's because Smith doesn't actually have free will.
Nope.
Smith believes that he's been freed, but he's actually still a program running himself just to the most extreme end of what he's capable of.
He's a prisoner who now can see his cage.
Which is why when it gets to the end and he says, you know, like he's like, and then I say, everything that has a beginning has an end, Neo. And then he goes, wait, why did I say that? And it freaks him out because he realizes he's still running on that treadmill. He hasn't actually broken free.
He's not King the Conqueror.
Get away from me.
Oh, man. I really like Hugo Weaving as Smith in these two movies.
It's impressive how much he committed to like the concept of what he's playing.
Yeah. The bit when he absorbs the girl, Sati, and Seraph, and just like at the end with the what is the like secret ingredient is love or something, the chilling
the secret ingredient to cookies is love.
And that's such a chilling moment. It's like right up there with "Want some candy?"
Well, because it defines something that like hadn't been defined at that moment, which is that Smith is amalgamous to the person that he takes over when he does that, has their memories, and that's why like you get that clear thing, like that's Sati now Smith, which means that the one that we see fight Neo is now Oracle but Smith, and it makes that very clear distinction. That's a great scene. And he's like, maybe you knew I was going to do that, but maybe you didn't.
Yeah.
So maybe you put that purposefully. Like
he's so fun in that scene. Oh my god.
Yeah.
With his laugh,
and the tension of just the doom coming in, where you feel like this is the last place, this is the last bastion, and Smith has taken everywhere else.
We talked about it briefly, but like when I was younger, I definitely didn't understand or care about like the limbo like train sequence, like with Sati and the parents. And now I love that stuff so much because it's like these parents just want the best for their little daughter, and like they're programmed so they don't experience love, but they know what the word love is, so they can like
no they experience it. The word is just a word. The experience is what matters, and they are encountering the feeling. And so it's like a program can't love, and it's like love is a word. The feeling is what matters, and the feeling is something we can engage with very obviously, very clearly, and that is important. Like it sucks because it's something that's like it doesn't quite work in the film as Revolutions. Again, not like talking about the wider thing, but like it doesn't quite work in the film, but it's so important because it's cementing that concept of like everything Neo's already been thinking about because of the conversation about like how are machines and people supposed to interact. This is him learning like the Oracle was a program. Oh, there are other programs. Other programs have these emotions.
They're not all
programs
bad.
Care about people the way I care about Trinity. Therefore, the answer is not destroy the machines, destroy the Matrix. That's not the answer. And so Neo's already working on that path, and that's really important information. It's just not necessarily delivered in the best way. I do think it's bizarre that they didn't do anything to necessarily tie into the concept of like Neo being at the being in a train station for his limbo, which is also the site the place where he started to be reborn.
Mm.
When he fought Smith at the end of the Matrix. The fact that like those concepts aren't necessarily tied to each other in any way is a little surprising to me.
Yeah, I guess that's the motif of a train station somewhere like you leave from.
Right, but like that's totally absent from the fact that that's where Neo has the beginning of his fight that would ultimately change him forever. Is like a little strange that those things don't have connective tissue.
Yeah.
And that's a great example too. The Train Man has ultimate power that Neo can't stop. So this is another thing where like those older code programs, it feels like they should be able to interact with Neo in a different way.
Yeah,
right, because the Train Man is so powerful there because he basically built that part of the Matrix. Like that's his domain.
Right, but technically, like Neo being what he is, he should be able to break through any kind of code, regardless of who designed it. And maybe he could in time. But like that same thing that like at first Neo can't, that should have been applied to all the other people who are of older code existing in the Matrix.
Yeah.
Little Sati. She can make rainbows.
Yeah. I really like this movie. I'm glad we got to revisit it.
There's a shot on the bridge when Mifune is shooting and the kid's trying to get to him, and it's a really wide shot of him coming, and he's like
so good,
and the colors and everything. I'm like, man, that's like a painting. That's a piece of art.
The after the initial invasion, when the Sentinels are coming out of the hole, you hear like a roar, and it turns into a hand.
Yeah.
And then the fingers merge into a giant fist and like punch, and I'm like, oh, that's the coolest shit I've ever seen in my life.
One of the times where I've like experienced like hardcore dreads, like, oh, they can't win, is when the first drill comes through and they're like shooting Sentinels left and right, and then a bunch of Sentinels come out, and all these turrets are just like turns around and like destroys that control tower. And just becomes so massive. And even though they're like unloading all these bullets into these machines, killing thousands by the second, it's still too much.
Overwhelming.
And just they get overwhelmed. It's like
that's what they said. That's what they say in the first film, right? Like they outnumber us 1,000 to 1.
Mm-hmm. It's just
and
like
man, that's so impressive is like obviously like a lot of that is CGI. There's so much practical work that you don't even know unless you watch behind the scenes stuff and it looks so good. Like that big giant tower in the middle that falls, that is a practical set that fell. When the hover, I always call it a hover car, like when hovercraft bursts through the gate, that's a practical effect. They built a small like a 1/20th scale like gate that they broke through. And like it just looks so good. It still looks so good to this day. I can't believe it. And despite it being so like colorless, it's not like colorless like for a bad reason. They do it on purpose because they live in the apocalypse, right? Like,
well, they wisely use different color palettes. And the interesting thing is, Zion in the outside world is always a cold color palette, except when Zion is being destroyed, which case it transfers to a warm color palette. I thought that was really interesting. I really like how all three films have used color.
Mm-hmm. I think like the rocket troopers are like a cool idea.
Yeah, I care about them. Like I've heard people talk about like not caring about the people in Zion, and I'm like, look, I care about Link's girl because I care about Link. Yeah. So when she's going out there and trying to destroy the drills, I give a shit.
And I care about her friend who is with her, and they're trying, and she's like leaning her over.
Yeah.
That's like video game shit right there.
Yeah. That's a really. I was gonna bring them up. I really like that subplot of the two of them going through Zion.
And the fact that like she ultimately like gets to the kid and it's her and the kid who get the gate open, I really like that.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah. Like, I was gonna bring it up. Like it's like cinematic like cheering moment is like the Sentinels are swarming everywhere. They cut to the control tower and they're like, we need to get this gate open. We only have one mech left. Who is it? And then it cuts to the scene, but you don't know who it is. You see the back of the machine, and then it turns and it's Mifune. And I'm like, it's the cinema. Like, Mifune is not a real character, but he is a dude who just looks really cool. And for me, in this scene, it's enough.
Yeah.
And that dude sells it so hard. And then, he passes and the kid has to do, Neo, I believe. Like, it's just good action. Like, I love it.
The tower, like after they said, who's out there? Who's still out there? And like, that's, shortly after the tower is destroyed.
Yeah.
All those people, man.
If anyone's listening, we got someone coming through to help us. It is a bummer that by the time they do get in, and they activate the EMP, there's only like 7 Sentinels left. So they activate it, and then there's like 7 fall from the sky, and I'm like, oh, you guys really didn't do anything.
Well, there was also the ones that funnel through the tunnel that they were able to get.
Yeah, but didn't do as much as I hoped.
I love how clearly you get the concept of like the Sentinels that are with Niobe's ship, the Hammer, like are telling the Sentinels inside, like you get the little like, oh shit, we gotta jam this gate.
Yeah.
Like, it's gonna be bad. They're bringing an EMP.
Because one of the guys, like the Sentinel, clearly has a moment of like, oh, they're going to Zion. Hey, buddy, over in Zion, you want to like block the gate?
Yeah, exactly. I think they telegraphed that very well.
Yeah, I love the action sequences in this movie so much.
Yeah.
Anything else we want to bring up?
Yeah. I think Neo doing his flying in the beginning of Reloaded is such a moment at that time. Like the way that they filmed it, I'm like, movies didn't have this. This was wild.
This is before the next Superman movie.
Yeah. This was wild to see. I think it still holds up as really, really cool. I love Neo still telling the kid like, hey man, you saved yourself. Like that carries over from the Animatrix story. That's just cool. Morpheus's speech before the rave, we didn't really talk about it, but it's a great speech where he's like, I know because they have never defeated us before. We're still here. Yeah, exactly. Now everybody bang.
Yeah.
I think the rave scene is shot incredibly well. Like we talked about, like I do like the rave. I think one of my favorite things about it is that like it's just a mishmash of like people of like, it doesn't matter who they are, what gender, anything. Like they're just all together. They just become like, what matters is this. This is what matters because this is what machines can't do. This is what we have. This is who we are. And
now I'm just imagining like a sad pit of machines trying to dance. Yeah. They're like, we got no rhythm.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about that. Talked about that. How to trust the program of the Oracle. I think that's a great little conversation. Like, how can I trust you knowing you're a program? Mm-hmm. And like we're all here to do what we're meant to do. I love like the whole point of everything to do with the Oracle that she boils down to. You've already made the choice. You're just here to understand why you made it. Mm-hmm. I do think it's a bummer that like she was able to do a lot less because she was already sick and passing away at the time that they were filming the scene in Reloaded, which is why she stays pretty much grounded to that park bench.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's why she's not in Revolutions. Can only imagine what the Oracle necessarily like the role would have been if she had been able to play it all the way throughout.
Yeah.
I really liked the explanation for why she has a new face when we see her. I thought that was a really respectful way of doing that.
Like a new shell.
Yeah. I think it's pretty good that she lost more than she wanted to. Some bits you get to keep, some you don't. I agree. I think it's a pretty good explanation. I kind of see a point some others have made in like, if the Oracle was changed, why wasn't the Oracle like drastically changed, but instead just stays like an elderly black woman? And I'm like, it's fine.
Yeah.
The programs that are not doing what they are supposed to do are the ghosts, the vampires, the angels, the werewolves, the aliens. I just kind of wish we got to see like a little more fun of that, even like if it was like as she's explaining, like just a montage sequence of things. I think that would have been fun.
You do fight a werewolf in Path of Neo, so
yeah. They have their choice when
a giant ant.
And a giant ant.
Yes, they have their choice when they're facing deletion to either hide in the Matrix or return to the source. Mm-hmm. I really love that Neo congratulates Smith on being free and that he's like, thank you. I think that's really good that it's just like apparently free, like yourself. Well, congratulations. Thank you. I think that's just a really nice dynamic between them.
Nice respect, yeah.
One of my favorite lines in all of Reloaded is the Merovingian says, like wiping my ass with silk when he refers to speaking in French. I really love the underlying, like, if you're paying attention, like that the whole thing with him having triggered her orgasm to go get a blowjob from her in the restroom. And that's why Persephone's pissed off. I think that's all done very well.
Power corrupts you.
Merovingian believes in feeling and lust, but he doesn't believe in love. That's what he's basically saying with the whole speech about causality as she's eating the cake. Essentially what it boils down to is that he believes in people like giving into feeling, giving into lust, and that being a way to control, and that's cause and effect. But he doesn't believe in love. That's essentially what he says.
Causality.
Right.
Great action scene. Like great action scene in his like French mansion with all those dudes that transfers into the highway scene, which is also excellent.
Yeah,
it's crazy action.
Agreed.
So much good stuff.
She wasn't kissing your face, my love. Yeah. I love when he tells Neo, who hasn't even he doesn't even register this because he hasn't talked to the architect yet. But there's the part where Merovingian says, "Your predecessors had much more respect," and Neo doesn't even go, "What?"
Yeah. Keanu Reeves has a way of talking, just in general, but especially as Neo, as it's a struggle to get words out. So every word is he's forcing a word out. I just think it's kind of nice. I like him. Yeah. That's what I like about him.
Just talking about the implications of the architect's loop, what that means of that Zion has been destroyed that many times, and then he gets to pick the 23 people, 16 male, 7 female,
23 chromosomes, right?
Yeah, to go and restart Zion all over again. That's just wild. What a wild thing. And it's interesting because you get this concept, we kind of hinted at it last week. We know that Neo is apparently always the same because the architect has the previous visuals of him.
Then flipping him
so
off.
That means that he's always been the same and he always looks the same, or at least he's interpreting his visualization the same.
Yeah.
Whereas we don't know what that means of how many people repeat their existences into the Matrix. This also gets into a concept of how much are they programming them and how much is a human soul. And where does that clash with the people who are born within Zion? And they are people who are purely born and they have souls that are completely unprogrammed by the machines. It's all bigger concepts that don't really get explored in it, but it's wild to kind of wrap your head around are the machines programming human souls, or where does the line get drawn there?
That's some Animatrix 2 shit that I'm looking forward to.
Right.
If only.
All right.
I talked about that.
I did really think that the I had a thought. Oh my goodness. It was related to the architect in some way, shape, or form. The idea that his other previous selves could have looked the same is very interesting. Because the Matrix Online kind of hints at a new incarnation of the one being born. Obviously the game was canceled before they did that. So that's an interesting way of if that was it. You get what I'm trying to say? I'm kind of losing my point.
I do. Was it going to be another?
Was it going to be another Neo
who looks like Keanu Reeves, or what was that going to be? And I do think I think the recall now because of Resurrections comes in is that Neo recognizing his own DSI in the visuals, and that's not necessarily what he looked like at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be the argument? But that they didn't. Was that the decision they were thinking at the time, or are they saying Neo always looked that way, which would imply that all of them have lived their lives before, at least all the people who have been plugged into the Matrix.
Yeah.
Very weird. I do like the Oracle, when she's basically preparing Neo for his final confrontation with Smith and talking with him about him being the antithesis of what's designed.
Mm-hmm.
It's that she defines what Smith is the equation from the architect trying to balance itself back out, and it's balancing itself back out far in another direction.
Yo, it's Mortis.
Because Neo went inside of him, he touched him too much with the source code.
It's the good side versus the dark side.
You are this is one of my favorite exchanges. It's very small and very slight, but where she says you are a bastard after he says the Sati line,
mm-hmm.
and he says you would know, mom. Referring to her as one of his creators. Link's wife staying to make shells, I think, is really good. She's a part of, thank you, Z, wanting to be really part of it. Smith as Bane hating his flesh. Nothing this week is meant to survive. I do think that there's a lot that I kind of wish there was somehow a way to explore more the concept of what it means that Smith entered Bane's body. How much does he actually engage with? Does that change how he works inside? Because he's not made of code only now. So what else is going on for him? And I wish there was room to really explore what that means.
His feelings.
And the fact that he is a Smith who is untethered from the other Smiths and from the Matrix. And what is that like? And how does I feel like there's more you could do in that realm of exploration that there just wasn't time to do.
Yeah.
But it just gets my brain juices going.
You bring up a good point, but I also want to bring up something you brought up a little earlier. Smith being the architect's code trying to balance itself out. So Smith theoretically was not something the architect or the oracle could have seen coming. When they changed the path of what this one will go down, Smith was supposedly inevitability that they just didn't see happening.
Right. So if you were to like pick and choose into it, if you were like to pick it apart, Smith is an agent. All agents are part of the code programmed to balance itself out in the Matrix for the rebels of Zion, not necessarily for the one, but that's what they're programmed for. That's where the equation works. Because Neo went into Smith when he burst him, he connected him to the source code unintentionally, just enough for Smith to gain a sense of free will, which wasn't the intention and not necessarily in the plan of either the Oracle or the Architect. Because it wasn't intentional for Smith to get that. Now, Smith getting that concept of free will isn't real free will because Smith is still a program and still going to run. He's just allowed now to run unbound by the code of the Matrix to the fullest extent of what he's capable of. But the fullest extent of what he's capable of is still limited within the scope of the Matrix.
Right. Yeah. That's a really good point. Sorry, I'm just trying to digest that. I'm trying to see how it balances off with the idea of choice being an illusion, because our choices are predetermined based on our past. You know, all the path that led us here will influence every choice we make. So free will is an illusion. That connection with Smith being untethered from the Matrix, thinking he has free will. Am I losing a thread there, or is there something supposed?
No, so that's the whole thing, is that Smith can't make a choice, nor can Smith understand it.
Right.
And that's why he loses.
He's beholden to his program.
Because it's not his choice is illusion. And he thinks he has it. He thinks he's doing it, but he's not.
Yeah.
Even though it was something unexpected by, say, the Oracle or the Architect, it's still programming code that he's running all the way through, which means he can't go past it. He can't evolve from it. It within the bounds of what this Matrix is.
Right. Anything else?
I'm looking at the last ones here. I think it's really interesting. We didn't really touch on this. I think it is a great touch that there are a lot of people within Zion who don't just immediately, even though they know Neo can fly, and a lot of people have said this, they don't just trust the one in the prophecy and Morpheus and all that. They don't just buy into it. It's not just an entire population of zealots who believe, like, absolutely, of course, this is the Messiah. I love that there's a political, like, pushback to that.
Because I'm sure it's been like 20 years of Morpheus, like, preaching this shit with nothing to happen, and then something happens, and it's like,
well, and people saying, like, okay, so this one can, like, fly, and he can do things, like, to the further extent of what we can do, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's gonna save us all. I appreciate that stance is there, that it's not just like you come into the Matrix Reloaded and everybody's like, well, of course, like, Neo is Superman, Neo is God, Neo can do no wrong, Neo will save us all. That there are people who don't necessarily believe. They don't, like, not all of them really try to get in the way or that kind of thing. They just, like, they understand that they have to run their own kind of plans. Like, they can't just have faith and faith alone.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, can't rely on that.
Yeah. I really like in Trinity's death when she gets to have the moment where she says, you know, you gave me my wish one more chance to say what I really wanted to say from the roof. I thought that was a really nice little speech. I think that's a good moment between them, even though I left a bitter taste in my mouth the first time I saw it, that I didn't like that Trinity died.
Now we know they just stole her body.
There's one Smith when Neo's first walking in and all the Smiths are looking at him, and then, like, all the Smiths are, like, have, like, different facial reactions, but there's one Smith, like, mixed into the crowd there who's just like,
yes,
like, he's got the Jack Nicholson and anger management energy where he's like, yes. So, like,
every 10 Smiths have a crazy one. Yeah.
I love that Smith. I love that Smith so much where he's just like, yes.
This is the movie that made me fall in love with Hugo Weaving. I think he's stupendous in these two movies.
Between this and Lord of the Rings coming out at the same time, like, what a banger couple of years for this guy.
There's a part where he and Neo are, like, in the fight and they get pushed into a building, and then they, like, have another moment where they're kind of chatting with each other, and he says the purpose of life is to end, and Neo, like, just responds by, like, putting his hand out and going whoop. And Weaving has this great moment that I'm so glad the Wachowskis let him play, which is that, like, it's completely silent, but they let it linger for like 30 seconds, which is that he sits there and he gives this moment of surprise, like, at Neo, like, still wanting to fight, like, he's kind of shocked about it, and then his face turns to elation, where he's just like excited about it, and I love that. I love that there's that much complexity in Smith on his face. We talked about the dialogue around love being as artificial as the Matrix as itself, and Neo's response, because I choose to, because Neo understands the choice of what he's chosen and the fact that he can do that because he's already decided that he's going to have the source code come through him, and that's why he's going to let Smith take him over. And that final like clink is Smith doing the everything that has a beginning has an end, because that's actually the Oracle saying that.
And then like when like he explodes and Neo in the real world, his mouth and eyes are exploding with light. Yeah. Crazy. I'm like, oh, that dude's dead. That dude's definitely dead right now.
I also, it's probably like my favorite moment of Weaving's acting, honestly, is when he's reacting out of the fear of the get away from me bit. I think that's a really good beat. I think he does that really well.
When he absorbs Neo and he starts freaking out because it's not working.
Is it over?
I like that Smith, that like the Neo Smith, he's just like,
and then he's just no, it's not fair. I think they do a really good job of the visual cat doing the deja vu of the resetting of the Matrix with Sati to show you that the Matrix has reset itself like very directly. The architect does define that because of the conversation with the Oracle and the architect, you get the definition of what the peace means, which is that everybody who wants to be free of the Matrix, that's the deal, is they now get to be free. And he's like, how long do you think this will last? You played a risky game, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, but obviously the thing is they'll get to be free. And she's like, I have your word. And he's like, what am I? Human?
I just like to imagine that like there's just some giant robotic face that appears over the world. Hey, this isn't real. Do you want to wake up? And then half the people are like, ah!
Well, I think that's the thing, is like it's really just everybody that we've talked about, and like we'll talk about in some of the comics and we talk about in the Animatrix, or people like the kid
who are aware,
or people who are like unhappy, people who are aware and unhappy and want to be free, people who would, if given the option, even on a subconscious level without knowing they're in the Matrix, if they were given the option, they would take the red pill. Those people now get to just be free.
And in Resurrections, they call them red pills, red pill, blue pills. Like they identify people in that way.
Right. The people who aren't like Cypher, the people who want to come out, they're now going to be allowed to come out, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
That they establish that. They do have the bit where Sati's like, will we ever see Neo again? And the Oracle's like, I suspect so someday.
Wait 20 years.
Like, ooh.
Yeah, that's when I thought Neo was never dead.
Yeah.
So I interpreted that as we'll see him reincarnated again.
Wow.
So in the Matrix Online, Neo's body is broken up into multiple pieces like a Horcrux. And then different machine organizations and factions try to get his body and try to reassemble his body to get the one for themselves. So that's a plot that happens in that game.
Is not canon.
Morpheus gets killed by an assassin who looks like a bug monster.
Also not canon.
Not anymore.
Yeah, there's some things where you could probably make the mental gymnastics to make the Matrix Online canon, but it's rough.
Resurrections definitely puts some needles and like, oh, that didn't happen for sure. But that's fine because that's an online game no one really cared about.
Anyway, that's all my notes that we didn't like necessarily bring up in our conversation. But I do think these are really solid films. There's a lot of great stuff to chew on. I think the biggest flaw of them is that, like, especially for people who are not willing to go like as hard as us or love film as much as us, that it's not designed to be engaged with easily, especially as singular film experiences.
Definitely, they are sequels where like it's not like you know, like a Marvel movie. Like you could see Iron Man 2 and you'd be fine without seeing Iron Man 1. Like you need to see The Matrix if you want to see those sequels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, shall we get into our book club then?
Sounds good.